Servus, Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. Today I want to give you a little presentation about a concept from the Middle Ages and early modernity in Central Europe. I'm talking about how the Holy Roman Empire treated dissidents. Inspired by recent events, I thought I should really talk about this topic because when you look at the practices that were common in the Holy Roman Empire, you can understand a lot about even contemporary Germany. For example, in one of my videos, I told you how the process of finding a candidate for the post of the head of the European Commission that was filled not so long ago by Ursula von der Leyen reminded me very much of the prince electors in the Holy Roman Empire when they had to elect a new emperor. So of course there were always people who went against the will and the interests of powerful elites and the leaders and central authorities. Some of these dissidents were idealists and some of them just wanted power for themselves. And in the Holy Roman Empire, there was a special process, a special protocol that had to be followed when you wanted to get rid of these dissidents. And that was called Reichsacht, imperial ban. So one can say that this goes actually back to the early migration period when Germanic tribes met at a meeting called Ting, and there they decided this, for example, who will be outlawed. So Acht is a form of outlawry, and that just means that this person is then no longer protected by the law, that you can hunt him down and kill him basically, and you're actually encouraged to do so. You're also not allowed to help him or shelter him. The wealth and the property of that person also is free for all basically. Everyone can take it. But if you were a feudal lord, then your possessions actually go to your overlord. So I think that this practice was just born out of necessity and convenience. If you wanted to get a hold of a criminal and punish him, it was actually very difficult because first you needed to actually get him and then you needed to hold court and all these things, very expensive. So what leaders then did is just they declared you an outlaw and then the people kind of took care of it because you cannot really survive outside of society. Especially in former times when you were declared an outlaw and an outcast, you could not really survive. And everybody has enemies, or there are people who want to gain the good grace of the elites or of rich and powerful people. Then they could also just take care of you. So that means you either needed very good friends who took a high risk in sheltering you, or you needed to avoid people. Instead of these early Germanic tribal meetings, these tings, later in the Holy Roman Empire of German nations, we had the imperial diet. And in this meeting, the imperial estates discussed important matters, and also among these matters were the declaration of imperial bans. And this could be declared on individuals or on cities and also on entire states. So there are some more interesting details, for example, that after a certain duration of time, automatically, without any further declarations or trials or anything like that, a church ban was also stepping into effect automatically after 6 weeks. Now the state of Reichsacht or ban that you are under then can only be reverted if you turn yourself in to the authorities and stand trial. If you fail to do so for a year or so, the state of Acht will turn into Aberacht, and that cannot be reverted anymore. That state was permanent for life then. So it was just a very powerful and very convenient method for the wealthy and the powerful to just paint a target on somebody's forehead and just throw him to the wolves. So there are many prominent examples of people and places where this happened. In fact, I guess one of the most famous examples is Martin Luther, who translated the Bible into colloquial German. and who also provoked the Catholic Church with his 95 Theses. As a result, the Diet of Worms in 1521 declared his excommunication by the Pope and his condemnation as an outlaw by the Holy Roman Emperor. His writings were banned and he was ordered to be arrested and tried as a heretic. He was lucky though, he could escape, he could evade his capture, and he was brought by allies to the Wartburg at Eisenach. I guess you all know that even though he tried to reform the Catholic Church in the beginning, but his teachings and his writings actually emboldened other forces in the empire that were also not satisfied with the state of affairs. I would say that his motivations that were entirely religious or theological in nature actually got mixed up with political dissatisfaction in the empire, so that some states actually declared themselves as Protestants, so that they were in a state of open rebellion against the empire then. You might have heard of the Schmalkaldic League that is named after the town of Schmalkalden, and that was a military alliance of Lutheran princes within the Holy Roman Empire. The Emperor Charles V, of course, wanted to prevent religious fracturing and the schism inside of his empire, and also the turning away from the Catholic faith made him afraid that actually the people would no longer see the legitimacy of the Holy Roman Emperor anymore. And he, of course, used the instrument of Reichsacht against the leaders of the Schmalkaldic League and also against cities there. Another very famous example is the Knight Götz von Berlichingen, a contemporary of Georg von Frundsberg and Franz von Sickingen. He led a peasant army against the empire. I think he was really made famous by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, who wrote a drama about him. And I actually went to see this stage play as a student, as many other students in Germany as well. His role in the Peasants' Revolution, however, did not cause him to be put under the state of Reichsbann. He was actually acquitted of his wrongdoings there. No, it was an earlier story actually. He was actually a rather rough guy, and part of his business was actually to capture rich people and ask for ransom. On a raid into Hesse, he captured Philip IV, Count of Waldeck, and he asked for a ransom of 8,400 gulden. For this, the imperial ban was actually placed on him in 1518. So you might say he was a little bit of an outlaw. He was also serving in the imperial army, of course. His constitution must have been very, very good. And I'm sure he also had a lot of luck, because despite of his lifestyle, he got over 80 years old. So I personally think that it is very interesting to learn about the lives of our ancestors, and especially these colorful personalities such as Götz or Martin Luther. Also Sickingen and Frundsberg, really interesting stuff. And I also think that the general patterns and the general conflicts that people had back then are not so much different from ours that we have in these days. Especially in the realm of politics, the EU and the Holy Roman Empire are very much alike, and also the mechanisms and the strategies with which people want to attack their enemies are very similar. So when I see what is going on in Thüringen at the moment, I cannot help but think of the Peasants' Revolution and of the emperor declaring Reichsbann over the people who provoked him. Just that nowadays that Angela Merkel is basically declaring people outlaws when they do not want Germany to become a full-blown socialist communist country, or when they want to protect their borders and have national sovereignty instead of a Soviet-like European Union. It is also very interesting, I think, how regionally these things seem to be happening at the same place over and over again. Maybe it is not a coincidence that Martin Luther was actually a monk in Erfurt. And also Reichsbann was declared over the entire city of Erfurt when they rebelled against their feudal lord from the west, the Electorate of Mainz. Here you can see a picture, for example, of how the enraged citizens of Erfurt are greeting the messenger that declares Reichsacht over them. In the end, one has to say that the city of Erfurt was defeated, though, by troops from Franconia, France and Mainz. Also, of course, the Wartburg Castle and Eisenach, as well as Schmalkalden, are of course in Thüringen. In today's conflict, I can just say I hope that the proud people of Thüringen will not back down and that they go on in spite of the imperial ban that Angela Merkel put them under. So I hope you like this little excursion into Central European history. Me personally, I find it very interesting and insightful, and it helps me to understand what's going on today actually much better. And I want to thank my supporters and my subscribers for making this possible. Please all like and share this video. Subscribe to my channel if you are not yet subscribed, and consider